Hello, BookTube. One of the things I love to do is going to sound a little self-evident in this context, and that is that I love to watch BookTube videos. Just love to. I subscribe to 1,000 channels, and I like to keep abreast of them all. Quite a few are fallow or inactive, but quite a few are active. I like to leave comments whenever I'm engaged to. I like to leave a like on the video, a little point of YouTube etiquette just in general and BookTube etiquette in specific for you to remember. When you start a video by someone, hit the like button. Not me, because I'm not in this for any kind of algorithm or anything, or for any kind of validation. But if you're watching something that someone made for free, went to the effort to make you for free, like it before you decide whether or not you agree with it. But anyway, I watch a ton of BookTube videos, and another thing that I love to do is talk about what I watch on my own BookTube channel. And both those things take a hit when I disappear from the radar. I disappeared from the radar for 10 days, 2 weeks, thereabouts. And that creates an enormous backlog of BookTube videos that I need to watch, and that I need to pay attention to and sort of digest. And I'm doing that. I'm in the process of doing that. I'm doing a lot of that. But one of the ones that I came across, I really want to talk about. I want to waste no time in talking about it. I'll get to all the others, and that is Alan Moreton, BookTube's elder statesman, he's a fantastic BookTube channel, in large part because he is so incredibly inventive. He's always restlessly thinking of new things that he can do on his channel. That's just wonderful. And boy, oh boy, when he comes up with a good idea, it's a doozy. And he came up with a great idea. I'm going to link to his video down below, just in case I get any of the details wrong. You'll be able to click on that and get them straight. But this is a plan that he has in mind. Chunksters for charity. Booktubers reading Chunksters for charity. Chunkster, in this case, is the standard BookTube definition of a book that's 800 pages or more, or in the neighborhood of 800 pages. No one's going to penalize you for 770 or something like that. And his idea, expressed in his video, was to donate money for every Chunkster that you read. He himself, in his video, is planning on doing 12 in the course of 2020. And his video about Chunksters for charity will be pinned on his channel, so you won't have to go hunting for it. And not just to read these Chunksters, that's one of the benefits here, is to get those gigantic books off your TBR, where they have been for way, way too long, but also then to turn around and make a donation to Book Aid International, which I think, let me see here, I think he leaves a link to it. Yes, he does, and I will too. And Book Aid International is a charity that amasses enormous amounts of badly needed books and sends them to the places where they're needed the most. And I know the worry, especially in America, where everyone is paranoid and crazy and fat, especially in America, but also elsewhere in the world, the worry when dealing with a large charity like this is always that you're not picking the right one, that they're going to be greedy for their own board members, or incompetent, or despised on the ground in the place where the donations are actually happening, or anything like that. And true to form, Alan has picked a winner of a charity. Book Aid International is the real deal. And the things they do, several of you are teachers. Imagine if you had all that drive, all the passion that has kept you in one of the lowest paying and most vital professions in the world all these years. Imagine if you had all of that passion, all of that drive, but no tools. Imagine that. Imagine if you were teaching, but your library was empty. And even worse than that, there is one thing worse than that. Imagine being that one kid in 10. If you're a teacher, you know what I'm talking about. They're all adorable. They're all pure before they become monsters, before they become adults. But when they're that age, they're all pure. They're all wonderful in their own way. And I've had endless conversations with them at all ages like that. But there's one in 10. There's that one kid in 10 whose life will be changed by books. Most of you were that 1 in 10 kid. I was not, so I'm even more awestruck by it than an ordinary person would be, I think. And if it's frustrating for a teacher to have no equipment, no equipment, how much worse is it for that 1 in 10 kid who maybe has, through the one book in the one school or the 2 books in the one school library, has had a tiny taste of what reading can be for them. The look on all your faces when you talk about what reading is for you. Imagine having a tiny taste of that and no more, because you live in a poor town or a poor village or a poor country, and you're not on the right end of society, and there's just no way that it's going to happen. Book Aid steps in. Book Aid International steps in where that happens. And the amount of things they do, they've been doing it for half a century, and their remit has been mostly sub-Saharan Africa, but they've expanded their reach quite a bit beyond that. And they've also expanded what they do. It's not just a question of shipping huge amounts, hundreds of thousands of books, to the one little brick village school, the one little facility that is 20 miles from the nearest facility, the nearest other facility. It's not just that they do that. They also make a priority of shipping and distributing medical textbooks to places in the world where they are more badly needed than anywhere else. And they also train teachers and librarians. They have all sorts of Head Start programs for children, especially the ones who show that kind of 1 in 10 kid promise. And they've been doing this for a long time, for the whole lifetime, a lot of their earliest recipients. It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing charity. So well worth your time and well worth your money. And the whole goal of Chunksters for Charity here, the Chunksters for Charity Challenge, is to pledge an amount of money for each Chunkster that you read in 2020. I think this is great. I'm all for it. I think Alan mentioned he's going to do 12 Chunksters in 2020. Now, the key here, of course, is the giving, not so much the punctiliousness. Alan makes a point of saying, books in series are fine if they add up to 800 pages, or just donating every 800-page increment that you reach in your reading in 2020, even if it's not one single book or a connected series of books. But I think the fun of the challenge is the Chunksters, because those are those are the great Seven Sisters Himalaya peaks in front of us all. I myself love Chunksters, absolutely love them, because like everybody else, I love the feeling of getting lost in a book. You think that I do, maybe watching this channel, but I do. Well, of course, everybody loves that feeling. I love the feeling of getting lost in a book that is so big, so sprawling, that it creates its own atmosphere, that it creates its own gravity and its own rules of operation. But the problem here, and I'm not bemoaning it here because I'm very grateful for it. The problem here is that I read too fast. I read so fast that I need a book to be a gigantic physical number of pages in order for me to get lost in it. So that I love Chunksters for that reason, and also because there's a certain kind of distinction. There's a certain special character to a book that's that long, even if it's bad. Like, for instance, one of the books that Alan mentions is one of the ones that he's going to read is Wheel of Fortune by Susan Howage, which is well over 1,100 pages long, and which is very, very bad. But it doesn't matter, because when you get up to those Everest peaks, the atmosphere, the density, the pressure is a thing all unto itself. It's an experience either way. It's an experience that I have now seen from both ends, because I had been thinking about what BookTube calls Chunksters for a long time and loving them, and finally decided one year to write one of my own. I wanted to see what it would be like to write a 1,000-page book. And the writing is every bit as weird and mind-distorting as the reading. But I think Alan said he's going to do 12 in the course of 2020. And again, I'll link to his video so you can see some of his choices. And donate £10 for each completed Chunkster. And I think that's a fine idea. I think we should all do that. I want to make this video in order to second Alan's video and urge you all to do this. mainly for the charitable reasons that I mentioned, but also because it's a great idea. It's a great idea, and it's not a lot to ask of a lot of people on BookTube to do this. I myself will be donating, I think, more than £10 per book. And I wanted to mention some of what those books will be. In fact, one of my 2020 Chunksters is done already. And that's that book that we saw here on this channel, The Essential Works of Thomas More. Princeton University Press put out a gigantic 1,500-page hardcover of all of the major and minor writings in Latin and English of St. Thomas More. And I read it, pored over it, loved it, marginalized it, commented on it, dog-eared it, and reviewed it. So that would definitely count. That would, if I did one a month, that would definitely count for January. But I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to boil down to a question of one a month. I think I'm just going to make Book Aid International a donation for a lump sum now, because there's no doubt here that I'm going to finish these things. There's no doubt. I don't need to commemorate finishing each one of them by dribbling out my donation money a bit at a time. I am counting on the publishing world to provide me with Chunksters throughout the course of the whole year. And what they don't provide, I will definitely go looking for. I've decided that for my own Chunksters for charity, I am not going to use anything off my own shelves. As I'll mention in another video, another thread that I'm seeing going through a lot of the videos that I'm catching up on is a decided strand of bushy-bearded Bolshevism. People saying, I can hardly make myself repeat it, arrant anti-capitalist nonsense along the lines of, I'm not going to buy any books in 2020. I'm going to read the books I already have on my shelf. Oh, whatever floats your boat, comrade. but I have decided that the Chunksters that I read that aren't sent to me by the publishers will be ones that I find out and about in book prowling at the Brattle and other used bookstores. So I mentioned for January, The Essential Works of Thomas More. That would definitely count. February, I don't think I have a candidate in mind, but that's okay because January has a couple more. I have them here to show you. One of January's Chunksters is John Connolly's From Peoples into Nations, his 800-page study of Eastern Europe. And another one is The American People, Volume 2, The Brutality of Fact by Larry Kramer, which doesn't look it, but is over 800 pages long. And I'm going to be reading and studying both of these in January. So that would be, I'm not going to stick strictly to per month because there'll be months where I read many Chunksters. And then in March, I don't have anything listed quite right now for February. So February might be a month in which I do something that I find in the wild. But March is another book that we've seen on this channel. Capital and Ideology by Thomas Piketty. Monstrous great thing that comes out in March. And then in April, I'm very glad that I noticed this. I'm very glad that I looked this up. In April, Oxford University Press is coming out with selected writings of Samuel Johnson. Unlike the Thomas More, I believe this will be a big fat paperback, not a $100 hardcover. It's edited by David Wormsley, who some of you may remember as the definitive modern editor of Gibbon's Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, which was made into a Penguin Classic box set of 3 volumes. The reason that I'm glad that I noticed this is because I was all ready to buy this thing at Amazon UK, because I read a long review of it, I think in the London Review of Books or the Times Literary Supplement, and it sounded fantastic. And then at the last minute, I remembered, oh wait, maybe you should check and see if Oxford is going to bring that out in this country. And they are. They're bringing it out in April, so I'm counting on getting a copy of that in April. But I wanted to show you, I want to put my Star Trek data pad down from it and show you a couple of more Chunksters. Like, for instance, March. This is Daniel Todman. This is Britain's War. A gigantic thing. Well over 800 pages. Then we have, what's this? This is, I think we saw this on this channel. I think this comes out in April. Yes, April. This is Nino Haratashvili, The Eighth Life. An enormous thing. Probably the biggest work of fiction that's coming out in 2020. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Although maybe this is the biggest work of fiction coming out in 2020. This is Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. Also enormous. Just a gigantic thing. These are over 800 pages. These definitely count as Chunksters. And one other, also from Oxford University Press. Oh, this is February. Actually, did I mention? February. Okay, February I didn't have one, but this one counts. This is the Napoleonic Wars. This is a gigantic thing by Alexander Mikaberidze, and this is coming out in February. So there you go. I do have one for February, and that's just in the near horizon. I'm sure that the publishing industry is going to keep up producing these tomes. I'm sure that it will, and that I'm just not seeing far enough ahead. But I wanted to give you an idea of the Chunksters that I'll be reading. You'll be seeing them on this channel anyway, and I'll gladly show you the big Chunksters that I get that aren't new to fill in the gaps here, because I read these things anyway. But I wanted to make this video not only to show you those books, but also to urge you to take part. Whether you send Book Aid International, a tenner at the end of every Chunkster that you read, or whether or not you put each £10 increments, or however many you want to do, £2 a book, £1 a book, £5 a book, whatever you want to do, whether you put those away and send them a lump sum at the end of the year, or maybe send them a lump sum now, one way or another, I wanted to urge you all to do this. This is a terrific idea. And we tend to forget, even on BookTube, maybe even sometimes especially on BookTube, we tend to forget what Alan mentions in his video, which is the incredible luxury of having easy access to large amounts of books. And we shouldn't ever forget that, because there are all sorts of readers out there who don't have that access. And Book Aid International has been trying for a long time to balance those scales. Whatever help BookTube can give them, I think, we will only benefit from it, not just spiritually, but also by the authors we nurture down the line. So I want to urge you to do it. I know that money is tight, but this is the very definition of a good cause. So I'm going to wrap this up. That is my Chunksters for Charity video. I'm going to be getting to a bunch of other stuff I've seen on BookTube, but this is by far the most important one. So I'm gonna wrap this up, but I'll be back. We have other stuff to talk about. Thank you, BookTube, and thank you, Alan. This was a wonderful idea.